It's more of a place you can come in, see product, buy it, but then how are you competing with these big box retailers that offer a lot of incentives you don't, and the communities and marketplaces that already have massive customer bases coming to them for other reasons.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Matthew Zehner, the CEO and founder of Zehner. Matthew, it's great to have you.
Great being here. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the creation of Zehner and the insight and opportunity that you saw in its creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the way that Zehner was formed was kind of by accident years ago. So I moved out to Los Angeles to work for Sapient, who was a massive digital agency at the time, about 11,000 people in the company. So I spent a couple years there doing interactive development, design, everything like that. And then I left to start my own startup. I kind of saw a gap in the marketplace to design and build almost a CMS platform for actors, models, and entertainers to create and manage their own websites easily. And so that was kind of what I was working on, and then started to meet a lot of people in the startup community in Santa Monica. This was about 10 years ago. And really came on to understand their problems, and they said, hey, you built your startup, can you help us build ours? And being unemployed for about a year building a startup, I was like, I could use some capital, and this is the easiest way I know how to make it. But at the same time, fell in love with helping people build their businesses, and that was really the core of Zehner for the first 5 years, was a digital product kind of incubator, which has since evolved. We found kind of our new niche and focus about 4 years ago, which would be fashion, lifestyle, and CPG e-commerce.
You've had envious growth over the last couple of years. What are the areas that are contributing to that growth, and sort of where do you see the business going over the next couple of years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say niche and focus is the core, and a lot of times there's shiny objects that make people kind of extend that and say, I'll take on this, I'll take on that. We did that about 5 years ago, and that was the only time as an organization that we were ever flat for 2 years in a row. So we said, hey, we can't try to do everything to everybody. We can't be a digital agency for any type of organization. So what is that new focus for us? Where are we seeing the best results, and what clients are we seeing success with? And that really then became fashion, lifestyle, and CPG e-commerce. We had some tremendous wins, brought a lot of people to like 2x their conversion rates, so significant growth in the e-commerce side. We started to ask them, why are you working with us? We're not a traditional e-commerce agency. There's so many of those out there, and you talked to some of the biggest ones out there before you chose us. They said, well, you guys really get the brand, you get the storytelling, you get the creative side, but you also get the technology. Having a digital product foundation and background, you can really build and scale anything to differentiate us from a digital standpoint too. So by being able to marry those two together, it's been able to create tremendous success for those brands, and direct to consumer. In particular these days, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's your brand and your story is what differentiates you in this cluttered space these days.
Speaking of direct-to-consumer brands and your work for startups, among them there's actually been a strong movement toward in-housing, right? Taking a lot of that work and doing it themselves. You've been somewhat creative, I would say, in your approach to that type of business, and you've created a whole bunch of new models. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about some of those.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, working with direct-to-consumer brands, and a lot of them being startups, goes back to kind of our early days as well of working with digital startups, digital technology companies, and the model with that is they are young, they are new, they are fresh. The advantage they bring to us is that they typically, the ones that we work with anyways, have a story to tell. They're really solving the question of why from a sales perspective of why are we creating this product, why do people want it, how's it making the world a better place, as opposed to how do we sell this t-shirt to somebody, or how do we sell this product to somebody. So we look for those brands that have that story, and then we align with them. So sometimes they're well funded. We have a lot of partnerships with both venture capital and private equity firms. So they bring a lot of their portfolio to us because of the success and the scale that we can kind of accelerate them at. But then some of them do come young and new and fresh, and we say, do we see opportunity with them? We vet them same way a venture capital firm would vet somebody they bring into their portfolio. We're vetting them. Are these founders that have done this before? Do they have a track record? Do we see success with what they're doing? Do we believe in their product? Does it align with our mission and our values as well as a company? And if all that matches, sometimes the capital is needed. This is not on an all case basis, but there's certain times where we will invest in it or even bring outside investment in to take some equity in some of these companies, or work with a performance-based model as well of we can kind of not guarantee results, but we believe so much in the results we'll create that we'll sometimes take a performance model that will incentivize both them and us to have a very close relationship together. It's something where it's even time and effort we can't bill for. It's time we're in the shower, time we're at home eating breakfast. It's like we're always thinking about these brands and how to build these companies, even more than a traditional one, because we kind of are their team, right? We're creating their company, both with them and for them. And we also look for brands with great founders that we can partner with, where we ran into this issue early on where people would say, hey, here's what we want to do. You guys are the ones that build it, go build it. Like, you can't just hand us your company and have us, build it for you. It's that collaboration and the joint expertise between what you guys are experts at, what we're experts at, and then let's, create that team together to build something great.
Is it like, a funding round or even earlier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes even earlier than that. Obviously not something we want to promote a lot, but there are those opportunities that come along that we are interested in. So, sometimes it's the friend and family rounds. Sometimes, in those cases, they do really have to have a great product and track record for us to align with them. I mean, typically somebody that did it before, can do it again or has a much better chance than somebody that hasn't done it before. So we look for that track record in those founders if they're not, previously vetted and going through like an A series on their company.
How do you sort of how do you make the case for, a business having its own channel and sort of, building out that sort of e-commerce capability themselves?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely two sides of it, of the brands that we work with. Some are, digitally native D2C brands, and then some are legacy brands, people that have been, for example, in the apparel space for the last, 20, 30, 50 years that are doing, massive amounts of revenue, but they're only capitalizing, 5 to 10% online direct to consumer. And so they're just, they don't come from that angle, and they don't know how to tell their story online. And that's, I think, where a lot of them are missing the mark. So they'll kind of compete. A lot of times we'll see, the sites that they have right now are almost more marketplace driven. It's more of a place you can come in, see product, buy it, but then how are you competing with these big box retailers that offer a lot of incentives you don't, and the communities and marketplaces that already have, massive customer bases coming to them for other reasons. So with them, we've been seeing great success too by coming in and, allowing them to tell that story. We've even, extended some of the commerce platforms with our own CMS on top of it. That makes it much easier to tell that story and create that, connection with the customer.
You mentioned purpose a little bit earlier. Do you think that's an essential ingredient in today's kind of brands that consumers more and more want to be aligned with the mission and values of a company as opposed to just purchasing from them?
With that, I think people do want to align with something they have a connection with. Sometimes that connection, what's been very popular and kind of a trend right now is that sustainability, thinking about the world as a whole, and as we're creating more and more product in e-commerce and just stuff in the world, is how are they making a conscious effort to then also just not pollute our world more. And so we've aligned with plenty of those brands. For example, Outer Known is one of those. If you're familiar, it's Kelly Slater. Mm-hmm. He left kind of Quicksilver and then started this apparel brand that would not only sell great product, but also get his story across. So sustainability, eco-consciousness, like really kind of making a difference with what they're creating, and telling their sustainability story was core to really growing that business.
How do you think about voice as part of the whole buying process?
Mm-hmm.
What are the special considerations that you might have for a client that wants to actually go down that path?
So, voice, I would say, much more transactional right now. It's, I already know a brand, I know a product, I believe in, I trust it. It's, hey Alexa, order more of whatever. It's,
Mm-hmm.
You already know what you want and you want to get it, very quickly without having to go through the whole consideration of a brand to make that purchase.
Do you think, in today's age where personalization and data about your customers is so critical that in fact having having everything funnel back, as you said, to your owned property, your own website, that essentially becomes an indispensable part of the whole thing, because that's the one area where you yourself as a company actually know everything about your customer.
For sure, yeah, I definitely agree. And that's your home to tell that story, to make that connection, and also to get the data on your customers so you can make decisions much faster. In these other platforms, you're either paying a fee or you're giving up your data and your connection. It's not really your customer at the end of the day. They're buying your product, but they're not your customer. So being able to really own that customer, own their experience, you can increase average order value, you can increase lifetime value of that customer, you can now remarket to them, you can curate, you can personalize, you can create a much better experience to continually improve their lives with the products that you offer.
I'm really curious, given all the work that you do in the e-commerce space, what are some of the newer technologies, whether it's AR, things like that you think will greatly enhance the sort of online buying experience?
Yeah, I mean, AR, VR, those are definitely a couple of the words that are always thrown out there with future technology, right? And so, I think there's a place for them. I think, we've been seeing more on the VR side, being more B2B right now of use cases where, maybe someday we can see that come into the consumer landscape. Augmented reality, we've been seeing some uses for it, especially there was like a furniture project recently where you can kind of place the furniture within your home and see the sizing, walk around it, see the details. That also, I think, there's a desire to innovate and try that stuff, but I don't think, on the other side of it, the customer, isn't always ready yet for those experiences. And the adoption rate, unless you're at, massive scale as a company, the amount of people that are going to actually use that feature today, I don't think is creating enough value for a lot of businesses to create, 3D renderings and, models for every single product that they offer. I mentioned there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of clutter, there's a lot of this, competing for your interest, especially on the direct-to-consumer side. So how can we, curate better experiences for our customers? Not only, tell our stories, but also curate and know what they're going to want and what they're going to like. And so personalization, recommendations, those technologies, leveraging your data to then create better customer experiences and get them what they want faster, I think is where people can get a lot more value than what they're getting right now. And people aren't really leveraging that data to the extent that they can.
What are some of the cool things that you've done from a personalization standpoint with some clients? Could you share some examples of that?
One client that we have is Rachel Zoe. And she has, if you're familiar with Rachel Zoe, she's kind of a celebrity stylist, been around for a long time what she's doing and does it really well. And so she has a box of style. And so we work with her on this subscription box. And as you know, there's a lot of subscription products and a lot of subscription boxes out there these days. And I think the model makes sense in a lot of cases, but at some point it will just be like the Uber of whatever, right? Where everybody's trying to do the same thing and there's just gonna be a lot of noise and clutter once again. So with her, it's leveraging her celebrity, who she is, as a trusted source, getting her message across, and then curating those boxes, based on what her style is, but then also the customer style. So evolving and leveraging that data to then bring in the right products to future boxes, and then even allowing the customers to then curate themselves and choose between different add-ons and options.
One of the questions we love asking is a book that you'd like to recommend, either that you're currently reading or that you've read in the past and you'd like to share with others.
Sure. I mean, that's an interesting topic too, is I would say I haven't read many books in my life. That's just not, my way of learning. And so what I've done, everything kind of in life and in business has been learning from doing. But podcasts are a great area for inspiration for me, and one that I do really enjoy is How I Built This.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with that one, yeah, Guy Raz, he's great on that, and it's great. I mean, just even some of the historical brands that he interviews and talks to, it's understanding success stories of entrepreneurs and how they built a lot of times these massive empires. And it's not only just the new and the relevant ones you can take advice from, but it's some of these historical brands of how these brands came to be 10, 15, 20 years ago. I heard a great one on the founder of Atari, right? And how he created that business and scaled it. And there's just so many patterns in history. I think all the strategies and patterns and principles out there aren't new, unique things that we're going to come up with tomorrow. It's how do we apply those to the technologies and the platforms and this, the opportunities that we have with today to then differentiate and excel these brands.
Matthew, thank you so much.
Cool, thank you, appreciate it.
That was Matthew Zehner, the CEO and founder of Zehner.